Good evening, degenerates, and welcome back to another episode of The Narrative. I'm your host, Scott Fitzgerald, aka Lutes for Sale on Sleeper. The Narrative is brought to you by the Ballsville games. Our games combine fantasy football with poker, which creates big payouts with great odds. We got a big show for you listeners today. We have Sean S. Clem from Sin City back. Hello, Sean.
Hey Scott, what's up, Ballsville brethren?
All right, nice to see you back again. And we have a special guest today. He's also going to be one of our game managers. He manages over 300 sleeper leagues, and he is an orphan master at rebuilding. And his name is Ken, and he goes by the dealer on Sleeper. What's up, Ken?
Hey, thank you for having me.
Now, how the hell do you manage that many leagues? Everybody's going to want to know. That's their first question.
Oh, I get that question more than you know. So, I use a lot of spreadsheets for when I do this. So, I keep track of all my leagues, all the players, stuff like that. So, it allows me to go throughout the week to find players and stuff. But on Sundays, those last minute injuries are always tough. Everyone battles that. So what I use Dynasty Planet, which allows you to sync to Sleeper, and it shows you every single league that you have a certain player in. So throughout the week, I use spreadsheets, but then on Sundays, I do Dynasty Planet to find certain players to get them in and out, so I know what league to go to.
That's very, very interesting. I mean, I don't know how I could do that, but I've seen you do it before. Ken and I are pretty good friends. We both live in Lakeland, Florida, and he's shown me kind of how he does it, and I still think I couldn't do it. Now, as far as orphans, um, I haven't got into the orphan thing. I never really dipped my toes in there. When you are bringing on an orphan, what determines which orphan you're going to take? What's your strategy on bringing in an orphan and rebuilding it?
So when it comes to orphans, there's kind of two different ways that I will go about analyzing a team. So one, I look at the overall team as a whole. So if you look at a team and you start off, I'm just going to use an example, Josh Allen and Justin Herbert as your two quarterbacks, right? You don't have to worry about quarterbacks for the next 10 years almost. So to me, it's like, okay, cool, the quarterbacks are taken care of. To me, when I build teams, I don't look at running backs and tight ends as much. I kind of wait on those because there's so many running backs in the league or handcuffs, and in some way, shape, or form, if you get 10 points, that's all I'm asking for from a running back. So when I go and I look at these orphans, I look at the two areas quarterbacks and I look at wide receivers. If the team is young, both quarterbacks and wide receivers, that's a good team as an orphan for me to go take over because it doesn't need much work. You need just probably some running backs and a tight end, usually. On the flip side, if the team is kind of already torn down and has a bunch of picks, I will also pick up that kind of team because now you're not trying to trade away all these old players, which takes time. And you kind of get the sentiment how people feel about certain players as the older they get. A big one right now, I'll give everyone an example, is Devontae Adams. Dude's been a beast for years. Great wide receiver, he's done well. Except now, when you go and trade him, no one really wants him, right? So there's no reason for me to pick up an orphan with older guys because those kinds of, when you try and go and trade them, people aren't going to want them. So it makes your life as taking on an orphan already harder because now you don't have pieces to get rid of. So I look for the younger teams, both quarterbacks or wide receivers, because either core is a great way to start. And I stay away from the older ones because it makes it a lot more harder to rebuild that team.
What if you have
So,
to take an orphan and he has older players, and let's say it's a friends league and they're begging you to take it, and it's something, let's say there was big prize money in this league and you had to take this orphan on and it had older players. How would you attack that orphan? Um, how would you get rid of those older players? Would you package them? Would you just
so
let them
what I
ride out?
would
What would you do?
so what I would probably do is I would first, when I first get in the league, take an older team, right? I put all the guys on the block for the league for which players I want to get rid of. So, put them all in, and I kind of wait to see what kind of offers come in to kind of see what people's reactions are to the players. Because the last thing you want to do is kind of be the first one to the punch of sending out all these offers because, you know, you don't know how people view players. So you kind of want to wait to have people come to you. I would personally build it depending on the players. I would do a lot of packaging before the draft to get younger guys because you might be able to bundle some older guys and get maybe, you know, earlier picks in the draft by putting a lot of the older guys together. However, if no one's biting, you're going to have to make a kind of a decision. You might have to take a little bit less value on what some of the players should be getting to help better your team long term. And that's just kind of why I go back to the first part. You don't want to send out those first offers. You want to wait for those people to come to you. So then you can kind of see, hey, you know what? I might have to take a little bit less value, but this is going to help me long term. Like if my team's old, like Aaron Rodgers, for example, quarterback, he maybe plays another 3 years. If I'm getting an early second to mid second, 100%, I'm sending him off, getting rid of him. There's been leagues that I've seen where he's gone, which I'm surprised, but he's gone for a late first round draft pick, 111, 112, which I'm like, good for them. But that's kind of the thing where it depends on the player. You might have to drop back a couple spots from the kind of value you should get.
Gotcha. Well, again, great analysis. Go ahead and have a drink, cool down since I had you on the hot seat. And I want to welcome Ken to the Ballsville team. He's going to be a great asset. Like I said, he just broke down all the teams that he manages and how he does it, along with bringing on orphans. So he's definitely the guy that you're going to want to pick his brain when it comes to that kind of stuff. Hey, Sean, have you ever grabbed an orphan before?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, just let me say last season, I picked up an orphan that was in pretty bad shape. And it's funny because what Ken was saying was pretty much the exact strategy that I incorporated. It was a slightly older team as far as my actual stud players, like I had Nick Chubb and can't remember my other solid player, but he was an older receiver too. Or maybe Cooper Cup, I believe is who it was. And so I pretty much did the exact same thing that Ken mentioned. I put out, hey, this is the guys I want to get rid of. I'm looking for help because not only did I only have those players, but I didn't have a lot of picks in the next draft coming up either, thanks to the previous owner trading away everything. So I kind of went in there with the same aspect, ended up being able to move Nick Chubb, which worked out great for me based on how everything played out for him that year. And then I think I got a first round pick and like a decent, kind of up and coming younger player, a couple year in receiver. I want to feel like it was Khalil Shakir, if I remember correctly. So, it actually worked out really well for me on that aspect because I was able to turn around, package that pick, and move up a little bit farther in the draft. And I picked up a pretty solid receiver in that league. I'm blanking on his on my actual roster right now, but it worked out really well for me. I actually have a team this year now where I have about 6 or 7 solid receivers that are going to be pretty much my entire core of the team. And I got Devon Achan and a solid backup running back there to kind of, fade him in case anything happens with him injury wise. So I feel like I'm in a position now where I'm ready to kind of compete this year. And if not this year, I'm definitely going to be right up there next year.
That's awesome. Great, great analysis there. So, like I said, I've never really picked up an orphan. Not really want to really dig into that and do all the extra work to do that. I'd rather just build my teams from the start, and we'll get into the roster construction for Dynasty and how we like to build these teams from the ground up. I'll start with everyone does things a little bit different. We're going to talk about building super flex league. The ones I get into are the two super flexes, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, tight end. Some of my teams are premium, and what I like to do is I like to attack the quarterbacks right away. I want to get 2 quarterbacks right away, elite quarterbacks in the first 3 rounds, and try to pick up a third one around 5 or 6, somebody that's in like the 12 or 15 range. And then I like to try to grab another, like maybe project or rookie quarterback down the road. So the strategy I like to use, I always call it the arms race, who can gather up all the quarterbacks first, because I've noticed in my builds, um, if I have two really good quarterbacks, for example, I have one team that has Patty Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, and that was a first year team, and I won the league the first year, and my receivers weren't that good. I think I had Mixon as a running back. I think at the time I had um just some hodgepodge receivers. But the point is, every week that I was playing somebody, I was getting like 50 points right away out the gate from my quarterbacks. And it's such a huge advantage to get out early with those quarterbacks in the super flex format, always having that quarterback in that super flex. Plus, on top of that, these guys are going to be on your team if they're young enough, anywhere from 7 to 10 years. So it's a huge advantage to get those guys and have them. You should be able to win 2-3 championships built around those stud quarterbacks. So that's the way I like to try to build my rosters, try to get as many quarterbacks as I can, because the cheapest way to acquire a stud quarterback is always going to be in the startup draft. Once the startup draft is over, unless you draft these guys in the rookie drafts, good luck trying to trade for an elite quarterback, because it's going to cost you a ton. So that the cheapest way is always through the initial startup draft. So that's what I've always done, and you'd be surprised how many people offer you millions of trades throughout the year just to try to get your quarterbacks and send you garbage to try to get these quarterbacks. So I like to build through them quarterbacks. Now some people ask me, hey, when do you want to get rid of these quarterbacks? When are they too old? My age is right around like the 31 to 32 year range. That's when I want to try to move them. So for example, Pat Mahomes, he's going to be 29 this year. So I figure I have about 4 more seasons with him. And at that 32 age year, I think there's still enough value if he continues to play at an elite level where I can get a really good return for him and he's not too old. But I don't. So I like to use the Belichick strategy. I'd rather get rid of him a year early than get rid of him a year late. So if I get rid of Patty Mahomes and he has a couple more good seasons, or shit, he plays till he's 36, 37, then I'm going to miss out on those good years, but I'm going to get a massive return for him. As far as running backs, I think you only need one good running back on your roster as far as like a legit starter. The other guys can be handcuffs, rookies, and because the gap is their expiration gap is like 4 years. So for me, 25, 26, I'm moving on from these guys, trying to get value and get rid of those receivers. I look for 29, maybe 28 to start moving on from these guys and get good value. And then tight end, I treat them like quarterbacks. I mean, if you have Sam Laporta right now, he's legitimately could play, if he plays at this level, even if it's not as good as he played last year, you can get 8 or 9 years out of him. So
He'll always be second place. TJ
oh,
Hawkinson.
here we go, the Hawkinson talk. It only took what, like 15 minutes before he had to stick that one in there.
Well, you knew it was coming when you brought up tight ends.
Yeah. Ken's infatuation with TJ Hawkinson.
Hey, if he goes down that rabbit hole, we're bringing up TJ Hawkinson.
Well, I don't know if the listeners want to hear that, but maybe when we get into the tight end talk, we can get into that. So what about you, Ken? Since you brought up TJ Hawkinson, how do you like to build your dinos?
So you and I are very similar in some areas, but very different in others. So I believe out of the gate, when picking a team, you need a good young quarterback to have, because you know that he's going to be there for a very long time on your team, right? So you don't have to worry about him getting older, anything like that. Now, where you and I actually disagree is when it comes to potentially the second quarterback that you draft. So I like taking a strong quarterback one, but then immediately going to build out my wide receivers. I want the top young dogs out there because with wide receivers, you know, for me, I want them until they're about 28. Most of them come in around 22, 23. So you have a good 5, 6, 7 years on wide receivers. How old CD Lamb right now? What, 24, 25?
CD Lamb is
I think he's 24. But my point is with him, he's like a top 5
he's
dynasty.
25. He's 25 as of today. 25 as of this month, 25.
So 25. And he's considered a top 5 dynasty wide receiver now. You're going to have him for the next 3, 4 years, and he should keep contributing. And that's the same thing. I still want to build out my young core because then I don't have to worry about them long term. Your wide receivers are going to continue to be a revolving door. So I wait. You said you want one good running back. Well, what tier running back do you want, Scott?
One.
So for me, I'm not necessarily looking that high. I'm fine with a tier 2 or tier 3. All I need is those 10 points. But if my quarterbacks and wide receivers are getting me, 20, 30 points a game, they're carrying the team. Cool. Go get me those 10 points running backs. Tight ends the same way. There's really now looking at it for the next 3-ish years, you really have the 3 big name dynasty ones. Kelsey's getting old. He's almost at the end of the line. Kittle's getting older. So what does that leave you? Hawkinson, which
would you say Laporta first, please?
I'm sorry, I have to.
I mean,
no,
are you serious?
Kincaid, maybe, anything.
I was getting there. But Hawkinson, Laporta, Kincaid, Andrews too, because I think he's 27, 28 now. He still has life left. Kittle's getting older. Kelsey's getting older. But after those 4 guys, there really isn't anyone that really stands out as much as those 4 do.
How about Trey McBride? You like him?
So I'm a big fan of him, and the only reason I don't have him up there is it all depends on what happens with this draft. Because there's been rumors that Cardinals might mix up their team, and it's very minute stuff, but I want to wait and see how they build their team, because if they don't touch quarterback, then McBride's up there too. So you have your 5. I just want to see what that team's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But, I want to read you guys some stats for a second.
Oh, here we go.
Because
I told the listeners this isn't a stat podcast, but I'll let you slip some stats in there.
I need one.
Okay.
He ranked QB 13 last year. He had 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, threw for just over 4,000 yards for a 65.6% completion.
You're talking about Baker?
Purdy?
I am not talking about Baker. I'm talking about Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, Trevor Lawrence.
Wow.
Trevor Lawrence, everyone loves. Oh, he's young. He's going to be a great quarterback, all this stuff. He was ranked QB 13 last year. QB 10, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, still over 4,000 yards, and a 64.3% completion. Baker Mayfield.
I like Baker.
The point is a lot of people don't give Baker the credit he needs, and a lot of people overhype on Trevor Lawrence. So it's like
I honestly would have flipped him. I would have flipped him. I would have thought it was the exact opposite.
Exactly, and a lot of people don't think about that. So getting back to how we build teams, some people, we just got to look down into the stats because, yeah, Baker's a little bit older, but he was 10 last year. Very underrated. So I guess that kind of goes back to how you build teams. It's about youth, but also looking at the underlying stats of these quarterbacks.
No, I mean, that's good analysis. Like I said, I agree. Everyone can build. You can win. You don't win one way. You can win different ways, and people like to build through the receivers. Some people like the running backs. I want all the good running backs, and I'm gonna, that's how I'm gonna, build my team. But so everybody has their niche, and how to, and really, I don't think there's a wrong way. and the only wrong way I think is when people say I'm punting my first year. I'm just going to draft all rookies and go from there. I think that's just a terrible way to build a team. You got to have a mixture of old guys and young guys, and I just think the punting strategy is just a complete waste of time. Sean, what do your builds look like?
A lot of the same with the early quarterbacks. I mean, obviously it depends on where I'm at in the draft. If I have a top 5 pick, a lot of times I'll obviously take my quarterback, my first rounder, and then depending on how the board falls coming around second round, it's usually either quarterback or receiver. Just kind of if we get a lot of quarterbacks going in the first round, then a lot of times I'll wait on another quarterback because like Ken just mentioned, you could have waited on Baker last year and he would have been a top 10 quarterback for you in your flex spot. So that would have offered you the opportunity to have a good 3 solid receivers in your second, third, and fourth round pick as your starters going into the year. And fading on running backs is definitely something that I've kind of started doing as the season had gone on because to me, the more you look into it, the more you kind of see how things play out. You're only going to get maybe 10 running backs that are going to give you like solid, consistent week to week production. And, not everybody in the league, if you're in 12-man league, is even going to have one of those guys. So I'm not trying to chase them early. If one of them falls to me, like if a Brees Hall is sitting there in mid round 2, I might think about that, something like that. But otherwise, a lot of times there's 1 or 2 players in the leagues that are so running back high that they'll jump on the chance to grab him or Bijan or somebody before I would consider it. So 90% of the time it ends up being, quarterback, receiver, 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 or if I'm, sometimes if I'm sitting at like 7 or 8, I'll get that opportunity to snag a second quarterback in the second round. Then I'll go that route and I'll go, quarterback, quarterback, and then receiver, receiver, and maybe running back at that point. If it's TEP, I'll sneak a tight end in the first 5 rounds most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the big difference will come in as far as that's concerned. But otherwise, I pretty much stick to that format. If I get crazy and I try to have some fun with it, I'll try to trade back a lot of times and kind of play towards next season, but still try to grab like the Jalen Waddle here or there. Somebody like that I know is like a solid player that I can get for a good round value right now, and then try to build forward towards 2025.
Gotcha.
So, but that's very rare, and that's only if I'm just trying to have a good time, maybe a few extra drinks at that point in time in the night, or who knows. Normally, it's pretty standard quarterback, receiver, receiver.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been in drafts before where I've taken 4 quarterbacks in the first like 6 rounds, and I got people saying, "Oh, look at this guy, he's taking all the quarterbacks. Don't trade with them. Don't trade with them." And I just sit back there and I'm like, "Okay, you know what? Um, you are going to trade with me because it's going to get to a point where you're going to be dying at quarterback, and you're going to come to me, and I'm going to tell you, no, I'm not going to take that offer. You're going to give me this guy and this guy." Because you're going to need a quarterback, or you're going to be throwing a receiver or running back in your super flex, and it's just not going to work. So,
Well, there's still only 32 starting quarterbacks in a 12-man league. If it's a super flex, 24 starters for every team, you figure at least half the league is going to be running some quarterbacks early on too. You've got
yeah,
4 starters on your
Yeah.
squad. There's going to be a team out there that's going to run into a no quarterback for this week scenario, and they're going to be dying.
exactly. And if the quarterbacks like last year, if they get hurt, I mean, they're just going to be coming to you with like I said, mark my. I get trade offers in some of my leagues all the time with just every week just offers for quarterbacks, and like I said, if I come into a problem where I'm like hurting and I really need a receiver, I can trade one of my quarterbacks, even if I have to downgrade and trade. Like, I probably won't trade one of my 2 elite starters, but like if I have a Baker Mayfield or if I had a Derek Carr, I mean, you can get a pretty good pull for them guys. I'm not going to say you're going to get an elite receiver, but you're going to get a pretty good receiver that you can plug in, for them, for those guys, and possibly a young one. It depends how desperate these guys are at quarterback. And like I said, from my experience, I've usually gotten a pretty good pull for them. So,
So
um,
I think it's good that you make that point about quarterbacks because there's one tactic that I've actually started seeing more and more, and it's actually one that I like to use a lot in drafts. Is I know it's going to change every year, but a lot of people in their first draft will try and get quarterbacks with all the same bye weeks, take the L for that week. So that means throughout the rest of all the bye weeks, they have all their quarterbacks available. yes, of course, it only works in that first time you're doing the draft, but
Mhm.
that is a tactic I've seen in their first season as Dynasty is doing that, which is kind of interesting because throughout the rest of all the bye weeks, people are trying to figure out what quarterbacks to start and stuff like that. When you kind of take them all in just 1 week, take the L, but then don't have to worry about it the whole rest of the season.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I've never seen anything like that. I don't want to take an L at all. So I mean, I would like to actually if I had four quarterbacks, or let's just say I had like a Levis, Mayfield, and we'll say Allen and Lamar. There might be a week where people are gonna be like, "Oh, you'd never sit Lamar." I might sit Lamar if Baker's got a great matchup, or if I probably wouldn't do it over Levis, but you know, what if Lamar's coming and he's a little banged up and maybe Baker's playing just a shitty defense. I may put Baker in over Lamar. I mean why not? If I think it's a good matchup, there's a reason why I drafted as many quarterbacks as I did, because I want to try to maximize my points every week. Um, and I want to get that. I want to get to the ceiling every week on my quarterbacks. No matter what, no matter if I have the two starters in or I got to bring my third guy in. Those are those two positions I want to hit my ceiling as much as I can. And I think with wide receiver and running back, it's very volatile to get that every week. I think quarterback would be your best shot, but that's just me. That's the way I run it. Like I said, you can skin the cat multiple different ways.
That's why we
All
love
right,
this game.
exactly. So now let's get into some rook talk. It's the NFL draft's coming up. It's in Detroit. I will be attending on Thursday.
Ugh.
Try to do some videos, and I don't know, maybe a friend of mine told me there's a game where you can like go up to the stage and you can actually like they have all the cameras up and everything, and you can like draw a play and like analyze the play, and they like
That's cool.
pretend record you and stuff like that, like you're doing it. So I don't know. I'll see if that's really true or not.
That was me, by the way. I
Oh,
was that friend.
you were, yeah, you said you were there in Vegas, right?
Yeah, they actually had it at the Super Bowl for all the NFL pre-Super Bowl kind of events that they do. They had
Oh,
that
okay,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's really awesome if you get the chance to do it, man. You'll have a blast.
Yeah, so I'll see what happens when I get there. I'll see what kind of videos. Maybe I'll try to get like, you know, somebody on video, or where I can like, say, "Hey, I'm from the Ballsville game on Sleeper, you want to give a shout out or something." Maybe I get somebody
That'd be cool.
semi-important, or
There
they
you
might
go.
just tell me to get lost. Who knows? We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. See what happens when I go there. So we'll get into what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw out my top five rookies. And then I want you guys to pick it apart and tell me what if a guy's too high, if a guy's too low, and that's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to, and we'll start with Sean. So Sean, I'm gonna give you my top five quarterbacks, and I got to this by doing immense hours of research on not just stats. I'm not looking at stats. I'm looking at the actual eye test. And obviously these could change with landing spots, but this is just my initial reaction. So I got Caleb number one, I got Daniels number two, I got May number three, I got Nix at four, and McCarthy at five.
Wow.
So go ahead and berate me.
Well, I mean, I've got to understand why you have it this way. Like, what is it about Bo Nix that you've got him ranked above JJ at this point?
Okay, so obviously I'm a big Michigan fan. Okay, and I think he's been drafted a little too high. Not just because he didn't really do a lot at Michigan. He just basically handed the ball off a lot. But I watched every Michigan game every minute of probably the last 15 years. So there was spot like you can go on YouTube or go wherever and look at McCarthy, and you could see all they're going to show is all the great plays. They're not going to show the plays where it was 3rd and 5 and he had an open receiver coming across the middle and he threw like, way behind him. It's like a simple pass. That's a pass you're going to have to make in the NFL. and it's like totally behind your receiver. You
Oh,
didn't
I
even
seem
leave.
to remember another quarterback that was like that in college coming out that everybody was all worried he wouldn't hit those passes. And I mean, so far
Josh Allen.
he's been doing okay,
I
you know.
know, I know, I know. So that's coaching. Hey, that's coaching. Bo Nix kind of reminds me a little bit of like I'm into them like pocket passer guys that 3-step drop, quick release, very accurate, and that's what Nix is. He runs a little bit. He's a little bit older of a prospect, which I kind of like. I really don't like the young quarterbacks coming. I want the guys that come in that have been through their system, can read their progressions, can
Big Brandon
audible,
Wheaton fan then, huh?
that can audible. Now McCarthy, there's a lot of times you'd look to the sideline for every play, and I don't like that. I want a guy that comes and commands the line of scrimmage. So, like I said, we're just talking about the top. Obviously, there's a big difference probably in the top couple guys. And to be honest with you, 1 through probably 7, um, probably 4, 5, and 6, and maybe 7 can be all interchanged. We're just talking about a few spots.
So you're gonna
So
throw Spencer Rattler in there too in
I
that
like
mix, huh?
Spencer Rattler. To be honest with you, he's my next guy, and I kind of like him. I like him. One guy I don't like is Michael Penix, and I don't like Michael Penix because he's an old. Besides being an older prospect, he was an injured older prospect. Looking at his film, a lot of his throws were outside the hash marks. He very rarely threw inside the hash marks. Everything was deep to the outside, and you're not going to have all day in the NFL to sit back there and like throw bombs all day. So that scares me a little bit. I have a little bit of a Jamarcus Russell vibe to him, where he had monster numbers in college, and then he went to the pros and got fat. So that's
Marcus Russell did a lot more than just get fat.
yeah.
I mean,
So
that guy, you want to talk about messing things up.
yeah, so that's my initial top 5. Like I said, things could change depending on landing spots, but and right now they're talking about Bo Nix possibly going to Denver. Not a bad spot, you know, possibly
New York, Minnesota.
If Minnesota doesn't trade up, he could be somebody where they take, right where they're at. So if Bo Nix lands in a pretty good spot with some good coaching and some good weapons around him, I think he could be somebody that could surprise, especially coming out of that Oregon offense. I mean, there was another guy, Justin Herbert, came out of Oregon, put up some pretty good numbers
That's a
in
little
that
unfair
system.
though. I mean, Herbert. I feel like Herbert's head and shoulders above
Oh,
Bo
he's
Nix.
definitely head and shoulders, but I mean, he's coming out of the same system. So
I
maybe
think
he's a
it's
system quarterback.
I think you also need to point out with Bo, you got to remember he wasn't at Oregon his entire
Yep,
um,
that's
college
exactly where I
career.
was going to
Correct.
go with this,
No,
Ken.
correct.
So
Exactly.
the issue is he wasn't there the whole time, right? So I believe he transferred there in 22,
From
which
Auburn.
which is fine. But the issue is, it's like you only get a couple of years. You're not there from the beginning to end. So I think that's a deterrent against him. I don't rank Bo at 4. Now, I do agree everything after Williams, who is going to go into an amazing situation, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, an improved O line, he's going into a great spot. Daniels, I think, is very good, well rounded quarterback. Drake May, strong arm, which those 3 I'm set. I think JJ needs to be moved up to 4 because I think he kind of shows more as a leader of an offense than Bo does. And I think, of course, it's all going to come down to situation. But if he ends up going to Minnesota, that's a perfect place to go. So you're going to have the top wide receiver, and a lot of mocks have him going there. So if that happens, he's definitely ranked 4. I think you put Bo at 5, but Spencer Rattler is definitely one that could shoot up depending on where he ends up in this draft.
I agree. I
So
like Spencer
consensusly,
Rattler.
we all are lower on Penix than the standard. It sounds like
And
pretty
he
much
and
across the
he
board.
has a very hard time staying healthy. He's had quite a few injuries that for a guy who's older, that's just not a quarterback that I want to draft unless it's good value later on in a rookie draft.
Good point.
Yeah. I'm
Excellent
with you
point.
on that. I mean, a lot of people are talking him going to the Raiders just because of the style fit and everything like that. And I mean, I'd be okay with that being the Las Vegas local, but only if he, falls to like late second, early third, maybe. That's
Right.
about as early as I'd go for him.
No, give me Minshew, man. That man with the
Right?
stash, of
With the
course.
stash.
The stash.
He's a perfect personality for this town, I'll tell you that.
Let me ask you guys about, because this was very difficult for me. I was really torn on either putting Daniel second or May second. I I liked both their profiles. I know a lot of people don't like May coming from North Carolina. I liked them. I like those pocket passers rather than the running guys. But Daniels is so damn accurate. I mean, he's just but he's like a string bean. So I'm worried about injury with him. What do you guys think about those two? Ken, go ahead. You start.
I think I still take Daniels over May because LSU is a big football school. There's a lot of
Right.
people who have come out of LSU and
SEC.
has done very, very well. So, and if you watch Daniels last year, the amount of perfect throws he had to make, he hit them. And he just can get out of the pocket, can run. Usually I'm against guys that are running quarterbacks. I like those pocket passers. But if you watch Daniels' tape and how he can manage an offense, he's very, very intelligent because he can pick apart defenses too. And that's what I want is I want a smart quarterback too. You don't have to be the most perfect thing, but if you can understand what you're going up against, that I think puts you up a level. Then it doesn't matter how much athleticism that you have. Drake May, strong arm, very good in the pocket, but he does struggle a little bit getting out of it. And he's, I still think he's going to be a good prospect, but also it's North Carolina, a little bit worrisome to me.
I got you. Well, that's why we have Ken on for the analysis there. Very good analysis. Sean, what about you?
I mean, I'm kind of to me, it's kind of like cherry pie or apple pie. I
Right.
mean, it's
Yeah.
whichever you prefer. Honestly, like they both have goods and bads. They're neither of them are Caleb, but neither of them are Bo Nix or JJ McCarthy. So kind of in a tier of their own. And I wouldn't fault the Commanders for going either route. To be honest, I personally think they're going to go with Swellbo, Jaden Daniels, but it's whoever they decide. I don't think it's going to be a bad choice.
I do think this is going to be a very interesting thing, but there's a good chance that a quarterback, in terms of how we have him ranked, JJ at 4 getting drafted after May, Daniels, Williams. I'm not even gonna put Williams in there, but Daniels and May. There's a good chance the Patriots don't trade back and they draft a quarterback. They have no wide receivers. JJ could get drafted later, but go to the Vikings and have a lot better upside year one.
Bo Nix too. If he goes to the
Yeah,
Broncos, I think
absolutely.
he's gonna have a better year one than May. I think if you're looking at it as far as fantasy, wherever they fall, that's going to be the order that they're in behind Caleb.
Right.
Wherever they land is going to make the difference for where they fall in the fantasy drafts because it's same thing. You're just talking about picking your poison at that point. And I'm not going to draft anybody who's going to be in throwing the ball for the Patriots for the next couple of years. I'll tell you that much.
I think a lot of these teams are going to try to grab if they don't already have one, and if they have multiple picks in the first round or a way to get multiple picks, the way this receiving class is, I think they're going to want to, like the Bears, Caleb. I think the Bears are going to draft another receiver. I think they're going to draft a receiver.
I think they're going to shock everybody and jump up for Harrison.
I
Jump
think
up
I
to
think
4
Ooh, that's
from
a
yeah, that
9.
would
bold
be
take right
interesting.
there.
That would be interesting.
Right?
I think the
Yeah.
Patriots
Oh,
could do the
my
same
seat's a little
thing.
hot with that take, guys. Sorry.
I think the Patriots could do the same thing. They could draft a receiver early and then trade back up and grab Rattler, Nick, somewhere like that. So I think these teams are going to try to double up with like young quarterback, young receiver, and have them grow together and kind of build that way. So I think it's going to be very interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of trades, especially when we start seeing uh some of these receivers start to fall a little bit. I think you're going to see teams jump back into the first round and grab some of these receivers after they've
Do you
already.
think we're going to have a team make 3 trades in the first round? I
I
think it's
mean,
possible.
there's a lot of talent, especially wide receiver talent, top end in this draft.
Like I'm
Um,
thinking maybe the Chargers trade back twice and up once, something like that.
yeah,
Hmm. That's
well,
a that might
that's pretty
happen,
interesting.
but I think
Right?
out of the top 5 picks in the draft, I think the highest chance of a team trading back is New England. They have so many holes on the
Really?
offensive side of the ball that they need almost every single position on the offensive side.
Yeah.
So I think out of anyone, I think the Patriots move back. I think the perfect
Do you think
team
they
is the
pass the
Vikings.
quarterback this year? I mean, next year the quarterback class is supposed to be weak. Do you think they're really going to pass up the option to get their signal caller this year?
So I still think that they could trade back and still get a quarterback. Now you're going to draw it back and probably get a Penix or a Rattler, but I still think there's going to be quarterbacks. They've already said that they're fine starting Jacoby Brissett this year, which blows my mind. But if you're starting
Payback
him,
for all you Patriot fans out there.
I just see the Patriots doing that because they need a lot of help.
Man, I mean, it's an organization that I could see making that move because I feel like he's not going to let the coach go. There's not going to be any fear of like, I'm getting fired after 1 year if I don't do good this year. So, I mean, I could see them almost punting the season away like that and just trading back and doing the best they can to fill their roster. Man, I mean, to me, that'd be so hard to swallow as a fan.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
tell me
sure.
about it being a New England fan.
All
I
right.
mean,
Well,
you
we'll
guys
move.
did have it the greatest at everybody for a good 2 decades, so it
Yeah,
can't really
yeah,
provide
for
for you too
sure.
much.
Yeah,
That's
for
so
sure.
true.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. Well, we're gonna move on to tight ends, but you know what we're gonna do? We're not gonna waste time on going for the top five because there's really only one, and we're just gonna talk about Brock Bowers. And I want to know from you guys. I'll give you my take on Brock. People are gonna want to know: is he gonna be? We know the infatuation when Kyle Pitts came out. Everybody was just like head over heels with Kyle Pitts. He was going to be the next Kelsey, maybe better. And everyone knows how that happened, how that turned out. Now the jury's still out. They got Cousins, and I think he'll have a better year with having somebody actually get him the football and a coach that can actually scheme for him. But Brock Bowers, I think, in my opinion, is just a whole different animal. He's a guy that can run a low 4.4, great hands, bulldozer. The way they scheme him, they give the guy freaking handoffs. I mean, when do you see a tight end getting like a sweep? I mean, the guy is a difference maker. I think he's going to be awesome in the NFL if he goes to a team like, let's just say, the Chargers. I think the Chargers would be a good landing spot for him. Could you imagine if he went to the Jets? With Aaron Rodgers. I think that might be a good spot for him, but I don't think he's going to be fool's gold like Pitts is. I think he's going to be somebody that's going to be make an immediate impact. Obviously, landing spot, is going to be kind of a big deal, but I think he could be landing spot proof. And I think anywhere he goes, he's going to contribute right away. Sean, why don't you lead this off?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am high on Bowers. I mean, he's right up there with the top three receivers, in my opinion, as far as like overall pass catchers in general. He's right up there with those guys. So I like him. I think that I'm a little bit higher on Pitts as well. I feel like Pitts has been kind of a victim of circumstance more so. So I don't, I'm not like completely against like, hey, drafting these tight ends high when they're this good. I think it's worth it. I really like the idea of him going to the Jets, even though I hate the Jets. I think that's a great landing spot for him. Chargers as well. I wouldn't like it if the Chargers took him at 5. They'd have to trade back to take him. Honestly, I feel like that would be. There's going to be, Harrison Neighbors, one of those guys there. I think that's a better need for them as well as offering the same upside. So, definitely top 10, I think is good for him. I mean, who's to say Chicago doesn't snag him at 9 if the other 3 are gone, and then they got the 2 tight ends combating him to go out there and just go
Oh, that's
crazy,
not a bad idea.
So it's that I don't see him falling past 10 at all, personally.
Okay. Well,
So
before we get into Ken's analysis, I go on this I follow this Keep Trade Cut website. Basically, what if the listeners don't know what this is, it's not experts. It's not rankings from experts. It's actually the fantasy community. So if you ever go on this website, it gives you 3 players to either keep, trade, or cut, and then it brings all the drafts and all the analysis, and they put it all together. So these rankings are rankings not from experts, but they're rankings from just armchair quarterbacks like us. And in this rookie rankings, it's got Bowers sitting at, and this is a super flex, 0.5 PPR, tight end premium is off. So right now it's got Brock Bowers sitting at number 7 overall in a super flex between Drake May and JJ McCarthy. So go ahead, Ken. Let me know what you think of Brock Bowers.
So Brock kind of goes against my um, game plan when it comes to drafting. Usually, I don't like drafting quarterbacks in the first round or anything in terms of rookie drafts. But I will say, Brock seems like one of the most clean and good tight end to come out of college with not needing much work. You know, sometimes tight ends come out, they're not a good blocker. So they wait a little bit before getting out on the field, you know, to kind of gain that knowledge and stuff. You know, Brock looks good. You look at all the tapes, you look at how he is used in offenses. Any team that gets him is going to use him. You just need to make sure that they use him the right way. But, you know, I think he's a good tight end that will immediately make an impact on the field.
Okay, we're gonna play a little game. It's called either or. And we're going to start with Sean. You give me an answer, and then I'll go right to Ken, and he can give me his answer. Rome Odunze or Brock Bowers? Sean?
PEP Brock Bowers, standard PPR Rome.
Ken?
Brock Bowers.
We will go. No, this is super flex. JJ McCarthy or Brock Bowers? Ken?
If I need a quarterback, I'm taking JJ.
Sean?
PEP, I've taken Brock.
Brock? Okay. Okay, maybe I'll try to throw one more in there. How about? I just don't think these guys are going to go that high. Well, I would say Neighbors. How about Neighbors Bowers? Sean.
Yeah. I'll probably go with Neighbors, just since I've said Bowers for every other one.
Ken.
I think, and we'll figure it out later on, but right now, not knowing team and situation, it has to be Neighbors.
Okay. I agree. I think I would take Neighbors, but I love Brock Bowers. Like I said, I think he's an easy plug and play. No matter what team he ends up going to.
I
And
agree.
with tight end premium, man, it makes such a big difference too. Because
Oh yeah,
then the
Oh,
trade value
big
for
time.
tight ends is off the charts too. So that skews my opinion a little bit in the TEP aspect for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So I got to go back to that last one. You know, when I said JJ, the issue is I'm a big believer, and I think the JJ kind of Brock will come down to where they end up.
yeah. Yeah, landing spots are, you know,
This will be a fun conversation for after round 1 of the draft.
yeah, and
Definitely.
next week's pod we'll do the receivers and running backs, and then we'll after the draft we'll get into it again and be like, hey, are these rankings good? Obviously, there'll be some movement in our what we think about these guys. So that'll be some pretty good conversation too. So yeah, well, let's get into some what everybody wants to come here and hear about, and that's
Roll,
the good
roll.
old trade talk. So I will start off with the trade, and you guys got those trades pulled up because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring one up. We'll talk about it. Sean, you can bring one up, and then we'll talk about it. And then Ken, you can bring one up, and we'll break it down.
That
So,
works.
okay, so I'm gonna bring this one up. One of our game managers, Gary, he goes by El Super Biesto. I think that's how you pronounce it. We were hoping he'd be on here so he could defend his trade. But this is how this trade went down. So Super Biesto, he acquired Christian McCaffrey, and now we don't know these roster constructions, so we don't know if it's tight end premium or if it's rebuild, contenders. So he brought in Christian McCaffrey, Evan Ingram, and McCaffrey's backup, Elijah Mitchell. And he sent away to Seabrock, Sam Laporta, and Travis Etienne. Like I said, not knowing if it's, tight end premium or whatever. I'm looking at this, and if it's a rebuild or contender, but I actually like, I'll probably be crazy for saying this. I actually like the Laporta Etienne side. I think you get an elite tight end at a young age. If it's tight end premium, I think he's going to score way more points than Evan Ingram does. Evan Ingram's, I think, 30, going on 31. Etienne, still a young back. I don't believe the coach speaks saying that they're going to scale back his carries. There's no way that I don't think they're going to have that. They're going to do that at all. Even though I do love McCaffrey and Mitchell, McCaffrey is going on his 28th year. How much gas is left in the tank? Evan Ingram, I swap Laporta for Ingram, so we've already talked about that. And Mitchell to me is just a throw-in. It really doesn't mean anything unless McCaffrey gets hurt. So to me, it's just basically McCaffrey and Ingram for Laporta and Etienne. I'd much rather have the not by a lot, but I'd much rather go with the Laporta Etienne side. Go ahead and break this down, Sean.
I'm same boat as you, man. I would be really far on the Laporta ETN side, to be honest, because like you said, Mitchell to me is just a throw in. Even if Christian McCaffrey goes down, who's to say Mitchell's going to stay healthy? He's had a hard time himself. So, I think you're swapping two younger up and coming players for two older, ceiling players at this point. So, I mean, McCaffrey could easily start to be on the downhill slope. I think Ingram's also up like 28 or 29 now or something like that as well. So, it's not like he's a young buck anymore. ETN is what, 26, so he's got about 3 more years in him left, 4 years maybe. I like Laporta, I like ETN definitely on that trade. I would go that route myself as well.
Yeah, and Christian McCaffrey, if anybody wants to know, he is, and the good thing I like about keep trade cut, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but I mean, it does say their exact age. So Christian McCaffrey is 27.9 years old. So he's going to be 28 years old, at the start of the season. I don't care who you are. Unless you're a cyborg like Adrian Peterson, you're going to fall off the cliff at some point. And I think this was a perfect opportunity to get rid of Christian McCaffrey. It like I said, the Belichick strategy, getting rid of a player a year early than a year late. I think this is this is the strategy I would have incorporated. What about you, Ken? Break this trade down.
Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna copy off what you guys said, but I'm definitely on that Laporta side. ETN is a good running back, and he continued will be. I think his usage actually will go up this year due to the fact that Ridley's gone, and they have no
Exactly.
clear wide receiver one, so they're gonna have to rely on him more. And he's younger, of course. And Laporta's just everyone knows Laporta. That man's gonna be a stud for years to come. Now Ingram, I think actually his production will go up too because it's really going to be him, I think, taking some of those targets where Ridley was. Ingram finished top 10 tight end last year and performed very well. But for me, this trade is definitely the Laporta side. And to me, I do this trade every 10 out of 10 times. Definitely take the Laporta side.
Yeah, and so I think we can all agree that Sam Laporta is just a freaking stud, and the Lions were, I mean, their brain trust is so smart for just letting TJ Hawkinson go off into the pasture and far, far away and bring in Sam Laporta. I mean, that was just a tremendous, tremendous move, and probably one of the greatest moves the Lions have ever did in their organization by moving on from TJ Hawkinson.
Okay, enough. You're not giving TJ Hawkinson the
I'm pretty
credit
sure
he
they drafted
deserves.
a running back at one point named Barry Sanders, right? I feel like that happened at some point.
Ooh.
Yep,
I
yep.
would also like to point out, so everyone knows this, you said DeAndre Swift was going to be a good running back.
I don't know if I even remember ever saying that.
I do remember you saying that.
You probably had a couple beers in you or something,
I
you know.
probably had a cup. I probably had a couple of drinks or something in me before. All right, Ken.
Oh, that's awesome.
I had to just rub it into you. Do you have a trade you want to go over, Ken?
So I think one, and this is a very minor trade. Well, actually, it's not necessarily a minor, but there is a trade El Super Bisto also made.
Oh God.
He traded away Nico Collins and Stidham for Wilson, a 25 first and a 25 third.
What Wilson?
From Arizona, Michael Wilson. Yeah, I mean, I saw this trade too, and I'm glad you brought this one up, Ken, because this is something I was looking at definitely discussing because I'm confused as to what he's going for here. So
Well,
I'm
Sean,
interested to see your breakdown.
while
I'm
Sean's
trying
working,
to,
Ken.
my
While
friend.
Sean's working, Ken, break down that trade.
So it's very hard for us when we get trades from people to kind of talk about these because we don't understand the team,
Right.
how both teams are, right? So it's very hard off the get go to look at this. But to me, to trade Nico away for 25 first and Wilson, to me, Nico's production isn't the one that's taking a hit with Diggs going there. To me, the one that's taking a hit's Tank.
Think Dell.
So for me, I feel like El Super Bisto didn't get enough for what Nico is, and the 25 first could be late. So, if that is a late first in Wilson, for Nico, I don't think that's enough value. So to me, I feel like the Nico side is definitely the side I would take.
Yeah. No, I'll chime in here. So even though Nico's like so on keep trade cut, he's actually dropped about 9 spots. He's now number 49 overall in a startup. But I agree with Ken 100%. Nico's the alpha in that offense. Diggs is going to be the secondary. It's not Diggs is not going to come in there. I'm telling you what, the Houston Texans did not bring Stephon Diggs in there to be the alpha. If he's smart, he's going to come in, he's going to play his role as a slot guy, and they're basically going to tell him, look, you're 30 years old, keep your mouth shut, play your part, and don't be a cancer to this locker room. So I think I agree 100%. Tank Dell is going to be the one that takes the hit. Um, and like you said, that 25 um first is just a random pick. It could be anywhere. It could be, we don't know who that owner is of that 2025 pick. So
But
I
I
think
think it's
Nico's,
also I think
like
it's
I said,
also
I think I always try to go back to the point where if I'm trying to break a tiebreaker in a trade, I always try to say, who's the best player in the draft or best
right.
player in the trade, and that's the guy I usually lean with.
But I think it's also important to think about that Diggs is with the trade between Buffalo and the Texans. You got to remember the last 3 years of Diggs's contract got voided out, so he's only playing on a 1 year deal, so he can prove it again that he can actually be a wide receiver and still contribute and still do what he's supposed to do. So at the end of the season, Diggs is not coming back to the Texans at the end of the season. So it's really going to still be Nico and Tank next year. So this year is the year it's going to hurt Tank, but next year Tank will probably move back up unless a new wide receiver comes in.
So are you targeting Tank now because of that drop? Or are you trying to target him to so that you can get a hold of him while he's, lower value?
No, I'd be targeting Nico. If anybody like we just talked about, if he's going on keep trade cut, he's dropped like 9 spots already. So obviously the fantasy community is down on him. So I'm looking to take advantage of that situation. Nico's only 25 years old. He's got a lot of years left in that offense, which is going to be elite. I'm going after Nico, and I'm going to take advantage of the owners that are skittish about Diggs coming in.
So
Do you think that Nico is? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ken.
I think to answer your question, I'm targeting Nico this year no matter what. I'm targeting Tank if I'm a rebuild and I'm a couple years out because
Okay.
Tank's value will eventually go up and he's still young enough where you can trade an aging vet to get Tank. And a lot of people are trying to get rid of Tank. So you could actually probably sell an older guy, get Tank and another piece on top of it.
What do you think, Sean? What do you think about that trade?
I mean, I feel like we're just like pounding on Beasto's trades here constantly, but I'm in the same boat with you guys, man. I'm just confused. I mean, pretty much all I'm seeing here, like if you wade through all the BS and just kind of find the nitty gritty of this trade, you're looking at Collins for a 2025 first. And the way his trades have looked up to now, I'm thinking that might be a pretty good pick. So, uh, I gotta go Nico all day on this trade. I would accept that trade, throw him a few cheers icons and a handshake, and say thank you very much.
Yeah. What about, okay, Sean, did you find anything?
So I was looking at there was basically one that I wanted to kind of talk to you about a little bit, just because it has our boy Burrow in it, and I know that me and you are both have a difference
Oh
of
yeah, Burrow.
opinion when it comes to our boy Burrow. So I'm curious to see how you feel about this guy. So we got a trade here from Jay Morris 410. He's got Chris Godwin, Barkley, and Lawrence, and he is sending that to looks like a Drew Blee 13, and he is getting Burrow, Shakir, and a 304. So me personally, I definitely would go with the Burrow route on this one because, as we've talked about, I have a very high opinion of Burrow, and I also really do like what Shakir is going to be coming up with here this year. I feel like Shakir, being that I've watched every game this guy's played in the NFL, I think he's shown me enough where I'm confident that he'll be a really good producer for the team. He'll be at least their slot guy minimum, Cole Beasley plus, kind of a position in my opinion. So, I think the Bills are still going to grab a pass catcher, but I think that only helps him. I don't think it hurts him. So I'm going Burrow and Shakir in the 304 on this one. So curious to see what you guys have to say.
Okay, so I'm looking at this, it's really close for me. Um, but uh I'm probably gonna go towards the Lawrence route. And the reason
I
why I
knew
want
it.
to do that, I knew you'd say, yeah. The reason why I want to do that is I'm getting a little skittish on Joe Burrow. His injuries now are starting to pile up. He's going on age 28, which isn't super old for a quarterback. But I just get I figure if I can just downgrade a little bit, um, to Trevor Lawrence, which is he's a little bit younger. I still think he has a lot of room to grow. I don't think he's a bust. So I see Trevor Lawrence getting a little bit better. I really think Burrow's reached his ceiling. I don't think he's going to have them 50 touchdown, 45 touchdown seasons anymore. And getting Barkley, I think that's a good move. Getting Barkley over to the Eagles. I think that the way that the Eagles don't have Kelsey anymore at center, the tush push, they're not going to be doing tush pushes anymore. They're going to give that ball, put it in the belly of that 200-pound running back, and start pounding touchdowns in. So I think the Eagles will transition to more of a where they're going to take the load off of Hurts. You don't want that pounding on your quarterback all the time. So I think Barkley's going to have a little bit of a resurgence this year. And then Godwin, like we've talked about earlier, I like Baker Mayfield. I think he's very efficient with the ball, and unless they bring in some other receivers, I mean, really all they have is Evans, who's aging, Godwin's still young. They got an up and coming tight end in Otten, and Trey Palmer's kind of a wait and see receiver. So I think you can still get value out of Chris Godwin. So I don't think it's that. I think the difference between the points you're going to get from Burrow to Lawrence, I don't think it's going to be over the whole season that big of a difference. I think you can make up those points with Barkley and Godwin. What about you, Ken?
I am very shocked by your answer, sir.
Oh my.
So here, so
Get him.
you say
Go on,
Burrow.
bring it.
You say Burrow has reached his ceiling. So if you go back, his O line has been awful every single year he's been in the league. Yes, he's gotten injuries, but if they can fix that O line, he's going to be fine. Some of his injuries have been freak. So I wouldn't call him injury prone, and they're piling up compared to Mr. Barkley, who's been in the league 6 years and only has 3,000-yard seasons. and the other three he hasn't, and he's been injured nonstop. Trevor Lawrence lost a good wide receiver, you know, and they really didn't replace him with anyone.
They have
Gabe
Christian
Davis.
Kirk. They have Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is definitely a very good receiver. I don't think he's elite, but he's
Okay,
a
so
very good receiver.
okay, who's better, Ridley or Gabe Davis?
Ridley,
Well,
absolutely.
yeah, definitely Ridley. I mean, it's not like an awesome comparison,
Well,
but
no, but my point is that you replaced him with a worse wide receiver than where you are, and you didn't make any other increases or improvements on the offensive side of the ball.
well, we still have the draft. There's a lot. You don't think the
I'm
Texans or
going,
the
I'm going,
Jags are going to grab a receiver?
I'm going off of what is in front of me. I don't know who they're going to draft. You and I have a completely different story. But when you give out a big contract like they gave to Gabe Davis, you have to think that he's going to have to do something.
True,
It tells me that they have faith that he's going to be more than just the number two that they need to get the number one for.
Right.
yeah,
So, and to me, we go back to aging running backs, right? So Barkley's getting up there in age. He can't, he's 50-50 chance he's going to stay healthy. Give me Burrow. I mean, Godwin's what, 28 now? So he's getting to all of our points where you get rid of the wide receiver. 27, 28. How old is he? 28.
I feel like that's
So
right.
yeah, so I just feel like you're getting you're dropping in terms of a good quarterback for two aging guys, and that doesn't even include Shakir, who I think is going to take a big step forward for that Buffalo offense because there's no one else. Ugh.
I don't know. I guess I believe in Trevor Lawrence a little bit more than you do. Um, like I said, I'm gaining. Trevor Lawrence is 24 and a half. So, and Burrow is 27 and a half. So I'm gaining some years, some youth there. I
Okay,
mean, if everyone remembers, he was the number one pick in the draft for a reason. He was like one of the top quarterbacks, the prospects to ever
Touchdown
come out,
Jesus, wasn't that his nickname?
to ever come out of college. So I don't think it's not like I'm trading him for a slug. I'm giving away Burrow for a slug. And yes,
no, but my issue is you look at the overall team with Burrow compared to Lawrence, and I'm taking Burrow 100. The Bengals, you have Chase, you have Higgins. They Chase Brown, I think, takes a big step forward, and I think he's actually going to be better than Mixon was in his prime. I know it's a bold take, but if you see Chase Brown, how he has so much speed.
I
I
agree with that
just
take
think
too.
I just think Burrow is just in a better overall situation than Lawrence, and to take that drop for just Barkley and Godwin, to me, that doesn't do it, especially if this is Dynasty.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good point. Like I said, I just feel the gap between Burrow and Lawrence long term. Um, we're not talking seasonal. We're just talking long term longevity. And, you know, I mean, Burrow's had an ACL tear. He's had a thumb issue. I mean, is he a guy that's going to be able to stay healthy? I mean, if he
I
had those
agree.
injuries, if he had those injuries like when maybe if they weren't those kind of injuries. I mean, a thumb on his throwing hand, that's a pretty major injury, I think. An ACL tear, it's a pretty major injury. It's not like he, broke his foot or something like that. So, I
Right.
mean, and like I said, he's got a great surrounding cast, but how long are they going to be able to keep that surrounding cast around? They're like way over the cap. I mean, Burrow's commanded a ton of money. They're going to have to pay
Yeah.
Chase. He already wants out. So are they going to be able to keep that core together where the Jags are a young team, which they're under the salary cap? They're going to bring in players and surround Lawrence with the talent that he needs. I think it was a bad signing by bringing in Ridley. You're bringing in a guy who's 29 years old. I think that was a terrible signing. I don't agree with the money they gave Davis, but obviously they have the money to throw around. So hopefully they get smart enough and bring in some better pieces to surround Trevor Lawrence with. So
That
I
scares
agree
me
with
a lot
that.
about Jacksonville because they have been like that since they drafted Lawrence. They've been like pretty much like just throwing everything they can at the wall and trying to find something that sticks, and
right.
it doesn't seem like it's been a really good strategy for them up to this point.
What would have been a great idea, and I think the Higgins thing came out after Gabe Davis was signed, but I think this is funny, but If Higgins wants out, I think Higgins gone at the end of the year. He's just done. He doesn't like how contract negotiations has gone. But if the Jags got Higgins, that might, that's a deciding factor. Now you actually get a good wide receiver. Yes, I know, Scott, you're a big fan of Kirk, and I am too, but they need someone else there.
Higgins is a potential one.
Yeah,
Kirk is never going to be able to be what Higgins could potentially be,
I agree.
Right, right. So,
especially
all
when
right.
he's wearing a Bills uniform in a year. I mean, oops, did I say that out loud?
And for the fantasy gamers out there, I mean, we're not, like I said, we're not going to always agree with each other, and I think that makes for great content. It'd be kind of boring if we all agreed on the same things all the time. So I know all three of us are not, we like to stick to our guns and we like to give our opinions, and I think it's great that we have the rebuttal like this. So Sean, did you find a trade?
Yeah, we just did my trade. We did my Godwin Barkley
Is there another
Burrow. That was it.
one you see? We could probably do one more. Is there one more that kind of
Yeah.
sticks out?
Let me look and see. Do we want to talk about the one that included the rookie picks that from the one that has Herbert and Franklin
That one's going to be
for
so tough to talk
Tua?
about.
I know it's rough. It's interesting being that they already have the rookies in there.
Yeah.
So
I hate God, I hate doing stuff like that. Like, why would you trade stuff? You don't even know where these guys are going. It's like, what are you doing by
why would
making?
you even have your rookie draft before the NFL draft?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah, I
even.
don't like that.
That's something that grinds my gears, man. I drives me nuts when people are like, "Let's draft now." I'm like, we don't even know what these guys are gonna be. Like let's wait it out here. We got a couple of weeks, then we can do it.
Yeah, for you fantasy gamers in leagues like that, just like abort, like get out of those leagues because they're horrible. You should never draft, unless you know where these guys are going, especially in these dynasty leagues. All
Do we want
right.
to break down that big boy? We had a big boy that was like 6 on 6.
Oh God. Yeah,
Those are
go
my
ahead.
favorite.
We'll do one more. Bring it up.
All right, here we go. You guys ready for this?
Yeah.
We've got Jameis Winston, Jonnu Smith, Desmond Ritter, Puka Nakua, the 112 and the 201. 4, Keenan Allen, Dawson Knox, Justin Fields, Pat Fryermuth, 103 and 210.
Did you digest all that, Ken?
Jeez.
I mean, honestly, man, if I had to go and like pick a side on this trade and try to, figure out what's going on here with all this, I think I'm gonna lean more towards the Keenan Allen, Dawson Knox, Justin Fields, Pat Fryermuth, 103 and
Ooh.
210. The reason being is I have faith that Fields will be a good quarterback still. Just because he's backing up, old man Russ, I doubt that's going to be a full season of that. I think that sooner rather than later, Fields takes that job, and he's going to be, a solid quarterback for you. He might not throw for a lot of yards, but he's going to get you a lot of rushes, potential long rushing touchdowns here and there. I like him prospect wise, and I like the idea of having the 103 so that I can literally get my two solid quarterbacks right then and there, and plus whoever else I might already have on my roster. And Keenan Allen will help me out for this season, but I might personally take the 210 and Keenan Allen and look maybe even throw Fryermuth in there and look to package that, move that for something else. So that I would probably go that route just because I would like to play around with the back end option for another trade there to fill, make it really worth my while. But it's a lot to digest. It really is. Puka being in that trade is kind of makes me waver slightly, but I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about that one because it's definitely one that
So,
takes digesting.
so I have to actually agree with you. You know, I'm a big fan of Nakua. I think he's going to be a stud for years to come. So when I look at this, Ritter and Winston, no value to me. I mean, they're throw-ins. Smith, yeah, you're behind all those guys, so you're not really going to do much. So it's really Nakua a 112 and a 201 for Keenan Allen. Fields, who I agree, I think he becomes the starter sometime this season, and this is the end of the road for Russell Wilson. The 103, which you can basically replace with Nakua if you needed to go that route. But then you got Allen on top of it, Freiermuth, and the 210. So to me, it's definitely the Jimbo's side.
Got you. So I look at this, and you guys both know how much of a quarterback extremist I am. So if I'm able to acquire Justin Fields, which on Keep Trade Cut, he is going quarterback number 26, 112 overall, and he's going in between, like, you could pick him. So basically they value him right now at a early second 2025, a mid second 2024, like that range. So would you guys either or Ken, would you rather have Justin Fields or a mid 2024 second? It took you
I can hear
that
the
long
Jeopardy music.
it took you that long to say Justin Fields?
So
You just
I don't
said
know.
you think he's going to be the starter. And it's the end of the road. So you're getting a starting quarterback who can rush, who's done it pretty good in the league for a mid 2024.
So here's my one hesitation to all of this. We don't know teams. Yes, I would take Fields. Yes, 100% I would take Fields. But if I'm looking at this from the other team and the other, he just threw Fields in, he's like my fourth or fifth quarterback on the team. I'm going to trade Fields for a mid second if there's the wide receiver there that I really need to help my team.
So you're saying like draft day, day of rookie drafts, you've seen everything fall, and the guy that I want is still sitting here. Now I'm willing to make that trade.
Correct. If I have the quarterback depth on my team.
I see.
What about you, Sean?
Uh, it's like I probably go Fields just because I'm such a quarterback guy, and I feel like maybe I'm selling it short a little bit by not giving it a little more thought. But I mean, I just the mid second round, unless it's a scenario like Ken just laid out, where okay, the guy that I want, I know is there for me. I think I'd stick with Fields because at least at that point, I know that I have a good player that the moment he starts for the Steelers, his value is going to jump up at that point. So, I would hang on to him if I have four starting quarterbacks. It's not like I need to play him anyway. I'd probably just go ahead and stick with Fields unless it comes down to, man, my guy's there, I'm taking him. That's the only changing factor.
I don't think I don't think Russell Wilson will do anything. I think he'll be serviceable, but I think he's going to turn into like Matt Ryan was at the end of his career. I don't see Russell Wilson. You go from Denver, you had a good running back in Javante, right? Cortland Sutton, which I think, he's a good wide receiver two on a team. Judy, I feel like Judy's had bad luck. He's never had a really good quarterback, and this now with Deshaun Watson will actually be good. But I don't think Russell Wilson will do well in Pittsburgh, and I eventually think Fields just takes over.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I mean, an interesting question to ask you guys is what's your opinion on Pickens in the situation that they're in there?
I like George Pickens. I flipped him for I last year I flipped him for Devontae Adams. So I like the youth of Pickens. I think he's an alpha. They proved that by getting rid of Deontay Johnson and making Pickens the true alpha now. He had a little bad luck in college with injuries, or he might have been the first receiver off the board in that class. Um, I watched his dad play growing up. His dad was just as feisty as him. So I love the bloodline. Um, so if he can just keep his head on straight and not do anything stupid, I love his skill set. And whichever quarterback's gonna lead the Steelers, I think Pickens is the future receiver. And you know what? I just like the Green Bay Packers are great at drafting quarterbacks, the Pittsburgh Steelers seem like they're always great at drafting receivers. So
Yeah.
I'll I'll um I'll take Pickens. I'll trade for pick. I'll trade an aging receiver for Pickens any day of the week.
I
Yep.
agree. I'm a big fan of Pickens. The only issue is that I'm starting to get worried about is I don't want this quarterback thing to be a revolving door for the Steelers because if it turns into that, you're just gonna eventually, you're going to have a Denver situation with Sutton and Judy, and you're going to have that issue in Pittsburgh. And I don't want that to happen.
No, I understand. You see it. I'm like, and my opinion on Pickens is going to change with whoever's throwing him the ball between those two. To be honest with you, I mean, like the way that Russell plays, just historically, I think fits Pickens' skill set really well. Because Russell is known for scrambling, tossing up the jump ball, and letting his receivers do their job. So that's to me, I feel like that's leans Pickens' way because Pickens is probably the best contested ball catcher in the league right now. I mean,
I love it.
arguably, but I feel like he is. So, yeah, I feel like, but then Fields coming in. I mean, I don't know if Fields has a great deep ball, but is he going to be able to connect with Pickens at the same level? I don't know. So I'm more confident with Russell at quarterback than I am with Fields at quarterback when it comes to Pickens. I also feel like you said though, Ken, Russ is half a season deep at the most, in my opinion, and then we're going to have Fields for however long they want to stick with Fields. So.
Yeah, because it's almost at the point where if the Steelers are out of contention, there's no reason to play Russell anymore and just go play
Exactly.
Fields and see what you have.
Yeah, exactly. And you
Yep.
know what? This is this is it for him. I mean, if he doesn't make it in Pittsburgh, he's going to be a future clip holder the rest of his life. So if he wants
I
that,
agree.
I mean, this is it. So, and if you can't make it with this team, the situation that you get, and you know what, you should sit back. He should learn from Russell Wilson, and be a sponge because we went to Chicago, we didn't have anybody to learn behind, and I think that's so important for a quarterback to, unless they're super elite, to come in and work behind a veteran, learn the nuances of playing the NFL game, and to be a pro quarterback because it's the hardest position in the game to learn, and
Yeah,
you
make
gotta
sure you
be
do
real,
knee-ups on the flight home, you know?
you gotta be you gotta be real smart. I
Yeah.
mean, some of these guys go through 2-3 playbooks, so yeah, so I think that's that's a good take. So so yeah, so we're also looking to let the listeners know we're the big game, our big game, which is our platform game, our best ball superflex is going to kick off on April 27th. The leagues are opening up. Get in there. It's $6.50. I mean, it's so cheap to get in there. Alex is giving away a couple free entries. If you like and subscribe to the podcast, that would be greatly appreciated. And so yeah, it's gonna be great with these best ball games, and then we'll get into the redraft down the road. So we'll have a segment um where Alex comes in and he does the live drawing for the free entries, and so you guys can look for that. But until next time, we're gonna sign off. And thanks for coming on, Ken, and introducing yourself, and nice to talk to you again, Sean. So and until next time, we're gonna sign off.
Thanks for having me.
All
Thank you,
right.
sir.
Okay. Later, guys.